to experience this. Looking around this crowd as more fireworks go off, it is getting very dark here right now as I just took off my glasses. The crowd is, everybody's looking up at the sky. Everybody's got these big, clunky, either paper or plastic glasses on. And now the crowd is cheering here. We are quickly going into darkness. This has gone from a very slow, listen if you can hear around me here, and now they're setting off more fireworks. The crowd on the beach cheering around us. It went from a very slow progression to very, very quickly here. It is officially, we are in totality based on the time, and it is nighttime here. I would say that if I walked outside, didn't know what was going on, this would be 8:30, 9 o'clock at night. The street lights are coming on right now, and it's very, very quiet. People are laughing, they're talking to each other, setting off those fireworks, starting bonfires. This is totality right now, Aaron.
ABC's Alex Stone in Oregon. I'm Aaron Katersky, and you're listening to live coverage from ABC News. ABC's Alex Stone is in near darkness now in Oregon. It's kind of weird, Alex.
It's weird. It's 10:16 in the morning here, and it is the middle of the night all of a sudden. And all of the street lights have come on. It looks like sunset 360 degrees around us. It is sunset all the way around. That kind of orangish blue that you would typically get with a sunset. Lots of flashes. Everybody's got their cameras up. It doesn't matter that it was foggy and we didn't get to see the Bailey's beads and the diamond effect, everything everybody talks about. Those last moments before totality, we could see the sun with our glasses. Oh, wow. As I look up now and look at the sun, it is just a ring of what looks like white fire coming out around the moon. Even through this fog here, you can see the gases and that plasma coming out from around the moon. This is that moment. This is the eclipse right now as we are in darkness, and there is a ring of bright light coming out from around the moon in the sky above us.
ABC's Alex Stone experiencing totality of the solar eclipse in Oregon. Sherry?
I have goosebumps. I really do. I have goosebumps right now, even though I'm not outside, I'm not where it is. Just listening to those people cheer behind Alex and then have him look up at his glasses and say, oh, wow, wow, there it is. Pitch black. It suddenly gets pitch black like that. What about, did you hear any of the, did anything get still? Did you hear any of the crickets come out or anything, Alex? Oh, I guess we don't have Alex, but sitting there and listening to it, and it happens so quickly. I mean, it's just in and then it's out, and and you're in the middle of it.
And the light slowly going to come on because it only takes a couple of minutes for this all to pass by.
And you wonder, because people who say they've been to an eclipse, they've been through an eclipse. It's just a special thing to be in total darkness like that very quickly. I mean, I don't know. I've been through a couple of partial eclipses, but I've never been in a total eclipse. But I've convinced myself that the next one, I'm gonna be at.
All right, 2024.
2024.
See you there, Sherry. ABC's Sherry Preston is with us as Oregon experiences a celestial sight like few have ever experienced. ABC's Alex Stone is there. We're going to check back with Alex in just a moment as Americans gaze in wonder through telescopes and cameras and disposable protective glasses as the moon begins blotting out the midday sun, the first full-blown solar eclipse to sweep the United States from coast to coast in nearly a century. From Oregon, it goes to Idaho and then on through its 3,000-mile journey, this 70-mile-wide shadow that millions of Americans have traveled far and wide to witness in person in these 14 states in the path of what is known as totality. An incredible sight on an incredible day. The Great American Eclipse is now underway across the United States, so stay with us. This is live coverage from ABC News. The Great American Eclipse is underway. I'm Aaron Katersky. The show is just beginning in Oregon, and the Great Shadow, 70 miles wide, is now cascading across the country. ABC's Alex Stone joins us from this first point of contact on the beach in Oregon. Alex.
And the lights have come back on. That was the fastest 1 minute, 55 seconds of my life as we experienced being in the shadow, in the heart of that shadow coming across Oregon as we look up at the sun now. and how quickly it happened. From when I was talking to you moments ago and it was dark and all we could see was a ring around the moon, I looked back up and thought, I got to put my glasses back on because we had so many warnings. That diamond effect came in and we were able to see it. Where going in, it was blocked by the clouds. Coming out, it definitely wasn't. And how bright it was, a bright white light that looked like a diamond. And I got to tell you, we had talked to a man who, during that diamond effect, because it looks like a diamond, was going to propose to his girlfriend here in Lincoln City today. We don't know if it happened. He's somewhere else. He didn't want us there to do it, but he thought, hey, the diamond coming out of the sun, match it with the diamond that he was going to put on her finger. So people are here for all kinds of different reasons. That was one of them. But the light is coming back now. It's daytime once again, very quickly. Now we're doing the opposite of what we did before. We're going into the eclipse. It was the bottom part that we could see left. Now as the moon and sun move away from one another, it is the top portion of the sun coming back out, and very quickly it's daytime here again.
ABC's Alex Stone with us from Lincoln City, Oregon. Go find out if she said yes, Alex, as the Great American Eclipse begins to sweep ashore in Oregon in this rare coast-to-coast march across the United States. Idaho is up next, and Greg Neff is there for us. And Greg, you've got a little preview from Alex is about to hit your area.
Yeah, you know what? It's interesting. He said the lights are back on there in Oregon, and well, somebody's hit the dimmer switch here in Idaho. We're just about 10 minutes away from totality. I would call this like an eerie twilight, kind of like you'd see at 5 o'clock in the afternoon on a March day, getting darker, and it's absolutely brilliant. Like I said earlier, we have probably the best viewing in all the country. There is not a cloud in the sky, and I'm looking right now at this eclipse, and I'm seeing a very thin crescent moon. Just gorgeous, and I can tell you that this Moonfest Music Festival that we're at in Rigby, Idaho, has come to a stop as people are getting on top of RVs and on platforms and just watching this eclipse. Even the band, it's incredible to see just how fascinating this is and how incredible it is. I want to bring in a special guest. Her name is Trenna, and she is from Idaho Falls, which is about 20 miles down the road, and you're watching it along with me. What do you think of this so far?
I think it's pretty great. I remember this about 20 years ago, of course, when I was 10 years old, and I remember viewing this eclipse with a shoebox and a pinhole. Technology's great. Now we were able to see it through our glasses. It's pretty exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. And how does this compare to that one in 79?
Well, being a 10-year-old, I don't remember much, so I'm sure I'll remember this far more than back then in 79.
All right, thank you so much, Trenna. As I said, very thin crescent moon, evening twilight, even though it's about, what time is it now anyway? It's about 11:25, and we continue to watch it all as it continues to get darker. Again, best viewing in the country, not a cloud in the sky, Aaron.
All right, Greg, thanks so much. Greg Neff in Idaho. We're going to check back with Greg in just a moment, and the woman there marveling at the technology that is the Eclipse glasses, which look a little like 3D glasses that you used to get in the movies, but darker. ABC's Brad Milkey is in Missouri for us, and he is, I don't know, Brad, is the weather going to hold out where you are?
Sorry, just lost you guys.
All right, we'll come back to you then. No worries. ABC's Brad Milkey in Missouri, and a bit of a windstorm, some weather impact. We'll turn to Seth Fletcher, our friend from Scientific American. And you can hear the excitement even in the voice of our correspondents in the field. This is neat.
Yeah, you know, the people who have been through a total eclipse say that the difference between totality, those 2 minutes, and what you see from a partial eclipse is just categorical. It's just a completely different experience. And I find that a little depressing since we're going to get about 70% here. But just even watching people on Twitter, watching on the screen, yeah, I mean, it gives you goosebumps. I'm now like really committed to experience this at some point in my life. 2024, I am there.
You and Sherry going to be in your RV.
We're going to be there, Seth. Absolutely. The thing was, when you heard that suddenly get dark, and then they just sort of sit and wait, and the cheering is amazing. Like, she just sit quietly. It makes you go, because again, having been through a partial eclipse, you kind of look at it and you go, yeah, that was neat. It was cool, but it's not the same thing. Mm-hmm. What are we seeing when they talk about the glowing around that they see when the moon covers the sun completely?
Well, it's the inner and middle solar corona, which is basically the atmosphere. So you're seeing plasma. ionized gas at millions of degrees just shooting out into space. It depends on, you're seeing the weather around the sun. And so we might, you can see prominences, arcs shooting up. It's amazing, at totality, the sun is actually about the same brightness as the moon, which is 1,000,000 times fainter than it is normally. So it's just an extraordinary difference.
Seth Fletcher's here with Sherry Preston. I'm Aaron Katursky. It's good to have you with us for our live coverage of the Great American Eclipse, which is underway across the United States, beginning in Oregon. And already we hear from ABC News correspondent emeritus Jim Hickey in Charleston, South Carolina, that he's starting to see the first bits in his post in Charleston, South Carolina. So we'll check in with Jim in just a little bit. ABC's Brad Mielke is going to be checking in from Missouri, and we also have Greg Neft with us in Idaho, who is, well, where are you now? What's the sky look like, Greg?
I would call it almost night here in Rigby, Idaho. And Aaron, I want to point out some very lucky folks. This is near a fairgrounds where they give helicopter rides of the area, and there's a helicopter in the air giving some very lucky tourists, I would say, the ride of their life. We've got the best viewing in all the country, I'll venture, because there is not a cloud in the sky. Looking right at the moon, I can tell you it's a thin, thin crescent, and there's this eerie twilight, the likes of which I've never seen in this time of day. It's just incredible to see the shadows and to see just how much the sky has darkened here. People have stopped what they're doing at the Moonfest Music Festival here in Rigby, Idaho, and they're paying attention to this. Everybody's got their glasses on, which is a good thing. Nobody should be looking at this with the naked eye, but we are expecting one heck of a show in the next 5 minutes.
Greg, we really appreciate you bringing us the perspective from your post in Idaho. Greg Neft there, as 200 million people live within a day's drive of this path of totality. And so Greg reports to us people from all over coming to where he is in Idaho, towns and parks along the eclipse main drag, have welcomed big crowds for what promises to be the most observed and studied and, Sherry, photographed eclipse ever.
Absolutely. You thought that Ellen picture was the most tweeted picture? I mean, people are up there now, especially when they hear that if you don't have the glasses and you don't want to do the cheap Fancy Feast pinhole camera, that you can just put the selfie mode on your phone, turn around and look at it that way. Now, some people were saying that wasn't necessarily the truth, that you could actually hurt your eyes that way, but imagine how many selfies that there are going to be of people. I mean, here's the thing. I want to see the sun. I don't need to see you in the sun. Just the sun.
Just the sun. Seth Fletcher's here, too, from Scientific American. Should we be taking a picture of this, or should we just experience it?
I would encourage people to just experience it, because it takes some special preparation to properly take a picture of this. I mean, there are guides online. I don't know how to do it myself. I have not prepared, but I don't think that it's nearly as simple as just pointing your iPhone at the sun and hitting, the button. So it's probably going to be wasted effort anyway. I would just enjoy it if I were there.
We'll leave it to the experts at NASA and others who are following the path of this eclipse as it cascades across the country, really over an hour and a half time period. Just an astounding thing, traveling at 1,800 miles per hour, this 70-mile wide shadow that's being caused as the moon passes between the sun and the earth, a rarity that we haven't seen in the continental United States in 99 years, and the last time we saw anything close was 1979. So it's such a fun experience for anybody interested in science or even religion, or anyone who just wants to gaze up. It's great to have you with us on this Monday for the Great American Eclipse. I'm Aaron Katursky, and you're listening to live coverage from ABC News. ABC's Brad Mielke joins us now from Missouri. You're still a bit away from totality, Brad. How's the weather holding up there?
It's so interesting you ask, Aaron, because here in Kansas and Missouri, which are usually so sunny this time of year, it just started raining. There are dark clouds hanging over us, and yet people are staying here with their cameras and their eyes pointed upward. Everyone here throughout the week has had a very positive attitude, saying, I bet the clouds will part, at least for the few minutes that we need them to. And as the sun and as the shadow races across the country, we still have a little while before that moment of totality, so people are still holding out hope.
big crowd where you are, Brad?
Well, yes, Aaron, and that's the reason that signal is so patchy here, is because 20,000 people have descended on St. Joseph, Missouri. It's a function of, it's a place that is right in the smack dab center of that line of totality. People getting upwards of 2.5 people getting upwards of darkness and not across the
We'll get back to ABC's Brad Milkey, swallowed, I think, by the crowd of 20,000 that he's watching with from his vantage point right on the Missouri-Kansas line. But Sherry, there is something to be said for this idea that people, 200 million who live within a day's drive of the path of totality, are coming out to do this.
Well, absolutely, because if you think of the last eclipse that went from coast to coast in the U.S., it was in 1918. And since then, the interstate system has been built, and you can just hop on the interstate and get to any one of these places. I mean, I can't remember the number they said. Is it 200 million of us are within a driving distance of seeing this? And two of them now are down in Goreville, Illinois, my nephew and my brother and my brother-in-law, and they just texted me a picture of the sun just starting to disappear behind the moon. They went camping there yesterday from Peoria, Illinois, which is it's south of Carbondale, which was sort of like ground zero of where this is going to be. But they were like, "We want to be here, so we're here, Sherry." I'm like, "Okay, good for you guys. Enjoy it."
ABC's Sherry Preston and reporting on her family's camping adventures during the Great American Eclipse, and Seth Fletcher's here from Scientific American. Scientists and astronomers in particular are also seemingly as giddy with excitement as ordinary Americans. Why is that?
Well, I think they're just as into spectacle as anyone, maybe even more so. But there are things that you can learn from eclipses. I mean, there's a lot we don't understand about the sun. It's hard to study. I mean, it seems like the sun should be a perfectly well understood entity because it's so familiar. But there are mysteries. You know, why is the solar atmosphere millions of degrees when the surface is only tens of thousands of degrees? That's, you know, there are theories, and nobody's entirely sure why, though. And so this, you know, just as it allows, you know, normal spectators to see the sun's atmosphere, you know, it does the same for instruments of science. And, you know, there's a long history of eclipses being used to test. Well, going back to Arthur Eddington, 1918, used the solar eclipse to measure the bending of light around the sun, and that was the first verification of Einstein's theory of general relativity.
Stunning that something so neat can also be so scientifically useful. And well, the moon hasn't thrown this much shade since 1918, right? And that was the country's last coast-to-coast total eclipse, and more Americans than ever are experiencing it in one way or other. The U.S. mainland hasn't seen a total eclipse since, since 1979, and even then, that was just a few states. 14 states are in the path of totality, and more of them are experiencing it coming up. You're listening to live coverage from ABC News.
This is live coverage from ABC News, the Great American Eclipse. From ABC News headquarters, here is correspondent Aaron Katersky.
The moon hasn't thrown this much shade since 1918. The Great American Eclipse is underway. The shadow, 70 miles wide, races across the country on its way to South Carolina. Started in Oregon. That's where ABC's Alex Stone is. Alex? And we'll get to Alex in just a little while as he, like so many others, are swallowed by these ginormous crowds. 200 million Americans live within a day's drive of the path of totality in 14 different states. Here in New York, where we are, we're only going to get about 70%, so we are not among the lucky few until 2024, when our luck may change. But we'll talk about that later. We are still in the middle of this cosmic spectacle we just don't get to see very often, and people did not want to miss it. ABC's Sherry Preston is here with us too. Sherry.
And even if it's cloudy out, this is a question for Seth Fletcher from Scientific American, even if it's cloudy out, you still get that essence of the eclipse, don't you? You might not see the whole thing, but do you still get a little bit of it?
I think it depends on how cloudy. Clouds are the ground-based astronomer's worst nightmare. But it's got to be cool. I mean, I can't say from personal experience because I have not been to one of these, but I'm going to imagine that you have just the overall ambience is going to probably change in a way that you've never experienced before, even if it's cloudy.
Because one of the places that people had looked at the past weather patterns was St. Joseph, Missouri, and that's why so many people had flocked there, and that's why they're having a little trouble there because there's so many people there today. But they've got clouds. This morning they were saying that it was cloudy and it was looking like it was rain, and we could hear Brad talking to people who were there on the ground, and we could hear the wind. And I was like, no, all these people. But you can't have perfect weather everywhere. I mean.
No, that's true. I mean, clouds can clear at the last minute, too. And I actually grew up in Missouri, so I can say from experience that the weather is volatile, I mean, it can be a total raging thunderstorm 1 minute, and then it'll be sunny and clear the next minute. So, well, maybe not a minute, but 5 minutes, 10 minutes. So I would encourage people there to hang in there.
Right. And even if you don't get a total eclipse, a partial eclipse is better than nothing.
Yeah, in fact, I'm seeing people posting pictures online of shadows, and this is something I'd read described, but I couldn't really picture it. But people are posting shadows on the ground, and it's like a bunch of little crescent slivers of light coming through trees. And I had read descriptions of that, but I couldn't picture it. But it's pretty amazing. I mean, just even the shadows cast by partial eclipses through trees, it's pretty otherworldly.
I had read that too, that's what you were going to see. It was going to look like when the sun filters through, but it's all little slivers of
yeah.
Look like the moon, but it's the sun.
Yeah.
I got goosebumps again. There we go.
The Great American Eclipse is moving across the country. ABC's Brad Mielke with us from right on the Kansas-Missouri state line. Brad, what's the crowd like?
Well, the crowd is huge, first of all, Aaron. As Sherry was saying, it's so easy to get to this band in a country like the U.S. That is what is making it the most widely viewed eclipse in history. People descended on this town of St. Joseph from nearby Kansas City, but also places as far as Austin, Texas. I talked to a couple from Maine. People came from Jacksonville, Florida. And then, of course, you've got the eclipse chasers, right? The veterans, the ones who are coming from Australia and the UK who have done this dozens of times. I even talked to one father and son. The son said, my father's been planning this literally my whole life because 38 years ago when he saw a partial eclipse, the dad said, you know what? I got to see the thing in real life. He circled the date, August 21st, 2017, and he decided to come up here to St. Joseph, and he brought his son along with him.
Oh, very sweet, Brad. And in addition to those diehards, any casual people that